She served him in silence. He never knew she was the ghost wolf who saved his life. The kingdom of Eldrath lay under a sky of silver twilight, where the sun never fully rose and the shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. The forests were dense and ancient, filled with whispers carried by the wind, rumors that wolves prowled not only the lands but also the unseen paths of fate. Within these forests, lives were measured by secrets, loyalty, and the silent weight of promises. Alara walked through the palace halls with quiet grace, her footsteps nearly swallowed by the heavy velvet carpets. She was a lady of noble blood, known for her sharp mind and gentle heart, yet her life had always been a thread pulled taut by the demands of court. Her family had fallen into disgrace when power shifted in the royal court, leaving her vulnerable to the jealous schemes of those who craved influence. Still, she held herself with quiet dignity, offering loyalty to the crown even when it meant suffering and silence. King Cale ruled Eldrath with a presence that could command armies or silence a room with a single glance. He was young but weary, with eyes like storm clouds that hinted at battles fought long before his time. Many feared him, few understood him. Yet even in the heart of his strength there was a loneliness that no gold, crown, or victory could soothe. He did not know it yet, but the forest had already chosen someone to watch over him, someone whose loyalty would surpass even death itself. Alara had known danger before, but nothing could have prepared her for the night when betrayal cut deeper than any sword. The banquet had been a carefully orchestrated spectacle, designed to honor allies while deceiving enemies. She had smiled, moved through the crowd with practiced elegance, and listened to whispers of plots she could neither confirm nor deny. Then the dagger came, thrust through the shadows of trust, ending her life before she could cry out. Death did not bring her peace. It brought transformation. When Alara awoke, she was no longer human. Her body was gone, replaced by the form of a spectral wolf, eyes glowing like molten silver, fur dark as the midnight sky, yet illuminated by the faint shimmer of ghostly light. Her senses were sharper than ever, every rustle of leaves and whisper of wind amplified into a symphony of hidden movements. She realized that she had been bound by an ancient curse, to protect the kingdom from the shadows, to serve in silence, and to walk unseen while those she loved remained ignorant of her sacrifice. The forest became her refuge and her kingdom. Trees that had once seemed intimidating now bent under her presence, and the rivers whispered her name, carrying it to places she could not yet reach. And yet, her thoughts always returned to the king. She had saved him once, without his knowledge, from an ambush along the northern road. A band of assassins, sent by those who sought to claim the throne, had surrounded him, their knives glinting under the moonlight. She had leapt from the shadows, teeth sinking into the attackers, and vanished as quickly as she had appeared. Cale had survived, shaken but alive, and had spoken of a strange presence in the night. He described a feeling more than a sight, a loyalty, a power, a protection that was not of this world. Alara had watched him from the treetops, her heart aching with longing. She wanted to speak, to tell him who she was, but the curse would not allow it. She was his guardian, not his companion. Her life and her love were bound to the shadows. Days passed in a strange rhythm. Cale moved through his kingdom with careful calculation, never knowing that his unseen protector followed his every step. Alara observed him as he held counsel with his advisors, walked among the people who both loved and feared him, and patrolled the borders that his enemies sought to breach. She learned him as no one else could, his habits, his fears, the way he paused when he thought no one watched. Her heart ached with every private glance she could not share, every fleeting moment of closeness she was forbidden to claim. Yet danger was never far. The palace walls held whispers of conspiracy, and the forest carried the echo of footsteps that were not her own. One night, as a silver mist rose from the river, Cale wandered near the edge of the forest, unaware that a group of assassins had tracked him there. Alara's ears twitched, nostrils flaring. The air smelled of iron and malice. She moved like a shadow, silent and deadly, intercepting the attackers before they could strike. Her claws and teeth, now spectral and sharp, were instruments of justice. Cale stumbled, confusion and fear mingling in his eyes as he saw figures moving in the mist. Before he could react, the assassins fell, one by one, to the unseen force that protected him. And then, as swiftly as it began, it ended. The forest was still again. Cale's breath came in ragged gasps. He looked around, searching for a hint of who or what had saved him. "Who are you?" he whispered into the mist, his voice trembling with awe and fear. There was no answer, only the faint glimmer of silver eyes in the shadows, watching, waiting, longing. Ilara's heart ached. She wanted to run to him, to reveal herself, but she was bound by the curse. She could not step into the light and claim what she desired most. Instead, she watched him retreat to the palace, his mind racing with questions, her spirit tethered to his every heartbeat. Night after night, this became their rhythm. Cale moved through his days unaware of the wolf in the shadows, while Ilara followed, her loyalty and love growing heavier with each passing moment. She learned the shape of his loneliness, the quiet burden he carried as king, and her desire to ease that burden became her guiding purpose. Every life she saved, every danger she intercepted, was a silent declaration of her devotion.
One evening, Cale sat alone in the garden, the twilight casting long shadows over the marble paths.
He held a cup of wine, but his mind was elsewhere, haunted by the memory of the phantom that had saved him. He traced his fingers over the pendant at his neck, a gift from his late mother, and muttered, "If only I knew who you were." Ilara crouched among the roses, her spectral form hidden, yet close enough to feel his sorrow. Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. She wanted to step forward, to tell him that she was here, that she had always been here, but the curse silenced her voice. The wind carried her sigh, but to Cale it was just the rustle of leaves. Then, as if drawn by fate, a new danger emerged. A figure cloaked in black appeared at the edge of the garden, moving with the precision of someone trained to kill. Cale's hand went to the hilt of his sword, but he was too slow. Ilara's ears twitched, her muscles coiling. The spectral wolf sprang from the shadows, a blur of silver and darkness. The attacker froze, staring at the glowing eyes that emerged from the mist. A low growl rumbled from deep within Ilara's chest. She leapt, striking with precision, knocking the figure to the ground. Cale's eyes widened in disbelief. He had seen the wolf in the forest before, but never this close. Never with such intention and control. The attacker fled, leaving behind only the echo of their threat and the faint scent of danger. Cale knelt, studying the ground where the wolf had stood. He whispered, "Why do you protect me? Who are you?" Ilara stayed hidden, her heart pounding with the weight of unspoken words. She longed to step into his arms, to tell him everything, yet the curse would not allow it. She could only watch, silent and steadfast, as he struggled with the mystery of her presence. As the night deepened, Ilara padded to the edge of the forest, watching Cale retreat to the palace. The stars above glimmered like distant eyes, silent witnesses to the bond forming between them. She knew the path ahead would be dangerous. The court would continue to scheme, enemies would continue to plot, and her love would continue to go unspoken. Yet she vowed silently that she would never abandon him, no matter the cost. And as the first pale light of dawn brushed the horizon, a new question hung in the air, a question that neither Ilara nor Cale could answer. Who would strike next? And would the wolf in the shadows be enough to save the king before the darkness consumed him entirely? The forest held its breath, and the ghost wolf waited, her eyes fixed on the palace where the man she loved walked unaware of the sacrifices made for him. The nights in Eldrath had grown heavier, as though the kingdom itself sensed the gathering storm. Within the castle walls, torches flickered, casting long shadows that danced along the marble floors. Outside, the forest whispered secrets to the wind, carrying them, unseen, into the halls of power. Cale moved through the corridors with cautious steps, aware of the invisible threads that tied him to danger. Ever since the night he had glimpsed the wolf in the mist, Cale had been haunted, not by fear, but by curiosity, and something he could not name. The memory of silver eyes, glowing with intent and intelligence, lingered in his thoughts like a melody he could not forget. He found himself walking the edges of the forest at dusk, hoping, perhaps foolishly, to see the phantom again. Elara watched from the shadows, her wolf form merging with the night. Every night she followed him, her presence a silent shield against threats he could not see. She studied him as she always had, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped unconsciously against the hilt of his sword, the subtle furrow in his brow that betrayed worry he tried to hide. She longed to tell him who she was, to feel the warmth of his trust, but the curse still bound her to the shadows. And yet, their bond deepened. Small signs of her presence became a language only Cale could sense. A fallen rose by his window, its petals arranged with deliberate care. A trail of wolf tracks near the stables, leading nowhere but meant to be found. Whispers on the wind, carrying encouragement, warning, or comfort. He did not know her face, but he knew her intent. Slowly, he began to trust the unknown protector, naming her silently in his heart as his shadow guardian. The court, however, was a place where trust was a luxury Cale could not afford. A new threat had emerged. Lady Selene, a distant queen from the north, whose ambition was matched only by her cunning. She had sent spies into Eldrath seeking weakness to exploit. Cale knew that even the most loyal advisor could be swayed by promises of power, and that danger lurked not just outside the walls but within them. Elara sensed the growing peril, her ears pricked to every sound in the palace, every murmur in the halls. She had saved him once before from assassins, but she knew the enemies were cleverer now. She had to be more cautious, more patient, more precise. Yet every moment she spent near him, invisible, yet so close, her heart ached with the longing to step into the light and claim the connection she had nurtured in silence. One evening Cale took a walk through the northern gardens, the autumn leaves painting the paths in shades of fire and gold. He paused beside a fountain, lost in thought. His fingers traced the carved stone, and he muttered almost to himself, "If only I knew who watches over me." From the shadows, Elara crouched, her glowing eyes hidden behind the darkness of her form. She wanted to leap to him, to reveal her presence, but even the thought of breaking the curse was too dangerous. Instead, she left a single white rose at his feet. Cale noticed it immediately. His brow furrowed as he picked it up, studying the delicate petals. Something about the flower felt alive, as though it carried intention. He whispered again, "Why do you help me? Who are you?" The wind shifted, carrying the faintest rustle. Cale's gaze swept the gardens, but there was nothing. Only the shadows moved, only the night whispered, and only the wolf watched, her heart both heavy and determined. Days turned into nights, and the tension in the court mounted. Cale's advisor spoke in hushed tones, warning him of spies and enemies while Lady Selene's influence began to weave through the corridors of power. Cale could feel the walls closing in, and he realized that the phantom who had saved him might be the only force capable of countering the unseen threats. One night, as the castle slept under a pale moon, Cale heard it, a soft rustling near the balcony. He rose, hand on his sword, and peered into the darkness. A wolf stepped into the moonlight, its fur shimmering like silver mist. It was the wolf from the forest, the one who had saved him more than once. Its eyes locked with his, glowing with intelligence and something that felt almost human. Cale's heart raced. He had seen her before, in fleeting moments, but never this clearly. He whispered, I wish I could understand you. I wish you would speak." The wolf tilted her head, her gaze unwavering, and a strange warmth filled the air. She padded closer, then stopped, just out of reach, her eyes filled with longing, loyalty, and something unspoken. Elara wanted to speak so desperately that it felt as if her soul might burst. She wanted him to know that she had always been there, that every night she had guarded him with her life. But the curse still held her voice captive. She could only nuzzle her nose against the edge of the balcony before retreating silently into the shadows, leaving Cale with the echo of her presence. The following days were filled with subtle games of connection. Kale began to leave small tokens in the gardens, hoping the wolf would notice. A piece of bread, a trinket, even a simple whisper carried on the wind. Ilara understood immediately. She began responding in her own way, leaving items in places where only he could see them, guiding him, protecting him, and slowly building a bridge between their worlds. Yet danger waited in the wings. Lady Selini's spies had discovered patterns in the night, shadows that moved too purposefully to be natural. They reported strange sightings to her, of a wolf that seemed almost human in intent. Celine's interest turned from curiosity to obsession. She would not allow such a presence to go unchecked. One stormy night, Kale rode along the northern road, investigating reports of bandits. Rain fell in sheets, soaking him to the bone. Lightning split the sky, revealing dark figures among the trees. Ambush. His heart leapt, and he drew his sword. But the attackers were many, and he was caught in a trap. Then the ghost wolf appeared, silver eyes cutting through the darkness, fangs flashing in the rain. She moved like lightning, striking the bandits with precision and fury, her every movement calculated. Kale watched in awe, unable to comprehend the speed, the power, the loyalty. The wolf fought not for herself, but for him. As she had countless times before, when the last bandit fell, Kale approached cautiously. "Why do you stay with me?" he asked, voice trembling, soaked by rain and emotion. The wolf stood still, eyes reflecting the storm above. She nudged a small locket toward him, one he recognized from the palace. It was a gift he had once admired but thought lost to the corridors of time. The wolf retreated into the shadows before he could touch her, leaving Kale to wrestle with a truth he could not yet name. His heart ached with a mixture of gratitude, curiosity, and something more profound. A pull he could not resist, a longing that refused to be quieted. Ilara watched him from the edge of the forest, her chest tight with emotion. She wanted to leap forward, to speak the words her heart screamed, but the curse still bound her. She had protected him in silence, served him without recognition, and loved him beyond measure. The bond between them was growing, but the world would not allow them to meet freely. And yet, she vowed silently that no danger, no curse, and no betrayal could sever the connection she had forged in the shadows. As dawn approached, the storm began to wane, leaving the forest wet and glimmering in the early light. Kale returned to the castle, still clutching the locket, feeling a strange sense of hope mingled with confusion. Someone, or something, was watching over him. Someone who knew him, cared for him, and fought for him even when he could not see it. Ilara slipped into the trees, hidden, her fur wet but her spirit burning with determination. The bond between them was growing, fragile and invisible, yet unbreakable in its devotion. She would remain in the shadows, a guardian and a silent witness, until the day the curse would allow her to step into the light, or until fate forced their worlds to collide. And that day was coming sooner than either of them knew. The castle of Eldrath had grown tense, every corner filled with whispers, shadows, and suspicion. King Kale could feel it pressing on him from all sides. The weight of his crown, the dangers he could see, and the dangers he could not. Each day brought new challenges, advisors plotting in secret, nobles testing his patience, and Lady Selini weaving her influence like a poisonous vine. Yet beneath all of it there was something else that haunted him more quietly, more persistently. A presence he could not explain, a feeling of being watched, protected, and guided by someone who had never revealed themselves. Ilara, in her spectral wolf form, followed him more closely than ever. The bond between them had deepened, though Kale still did not know her true identity. Her loyalty and love had become instinctive. She anticipated dangers, steered him away from traps, and at times risked revealing herself in fleeting glimpses. She had allowed him to see her in partial human form only once, fleetingly, during a moonlit night in the gardens. Her face had been veiled by mist, yet Kale had felt a connection that left him unsettled and longing. The court was on edge. Lady Selini had sent envoys to report that she had seen the Shadow Guardian, the wolf with intelligence beyond nature. Her spies were clever, and Kale realized that their presence in the palace was no accident. Every day, he felt the line between friend and foe blur. He could trust few, and even the loyalty of the court's strongest advisors seemed uncertain. One evening, Cale stood on the balcony of the northern tower, staring into the forest. The silver glow of the moon reflected on the castle walls, casting shadows that seemed almost alive. His mind wandered to the wolf, to the locket, to the presence that had saved him so many times. His hand brushed the pendant at his neck, and he whispered into the night, "If only I knew who you were. If only I could thank you properly." Elara's eyes glimmered in the trees. Her heart ached. She wanted him to know that she had always been there, that every attack he had survived, every danger he had evaded, had been because of her. She longed to step into the light, to take his hand, and tell him everything. But the curse held her in the shadows, and to break it without the right magic could mean losing him forever. The danger from Lady Selene escalated faster than either of them expected. One night, as Cale reviewed reports in the council chamber, a sudden explosion of fire erupted near the palace gates. Horses screamed in terror, servants shouted, and smoke curled into the night sky. The northern battlements were under siege. Lady Selene's forces had struck. Cale rushed to the battlements, drawing his sword and barking orders to his guards. Amid the chaos, the ghost wolf leapt from the shadows, silver eyes blazing, teeth and claws tearing through the invaders with precision. Cale's heart pounded as he watched her move, faster and more lethal than any human warrior. She fought not for herself, but for him, as she always had. When the last invader fell, Cale approached cautiously. The wolf did not retreat. Her eyes met his, and for a moment he felt a surge of recognition, a feeling that something within him had been missing all his life. He reached out instinctively, but the wolf stepped back, disappearing into the shadows with a growl that was almost sorrowful. The next days were a delicate balance between rebuilding the castle defenses and maintaining control of the kingdom. Cale's curiosity about the wolf grew unbearable. He spoke to his advisors less, relying instead on his instincts and his bond with the unseen protector. Every night he left small tokens for her in the gardens: a piece of bread, a silver locket, a whispered word of gratitude. Each time she responded with subtle gestures: a paw print, a carefully arranged rose, a rustle of leaves. Cale felt the connection grow, though he still could not name it. Then came the night that changed everything. The forest had grown unnaturally quiet, and Cale sensed danger before he saw it. Lady Selene herself had led a raid deep into the northern woods, hoping to catch him unguarded. Cale's guards were outnumbered, and for the first time he realized he might not survive without help. From the shadows, Elara appeared, her wolf form glowing like moonlight in the dark forest. She leapt into the battle, her strength and agility unmatched. She tore through the enemy ranks, protecting Cale as though her life depended on it, and in a moment of desperation she shifted, her form blurring between wolf and human. Cale froze. The mist parted, revealing the woman beneath the spectral fur. Elara, alive yet changed, her eyes filled with determination and longing. "Elara," he whispered, disbelief and awe mingling in his voice. "It's you?" She stepped closer, voice trembling but firm.
I have always been here, Cale. Always watching, always protecting.
I could not speak. Not until now. For a moment the world fell away. Cale's chest tightened, a mixture of joy, confusion, and fear coursing through him. He reached for her, but the memory of her wolf form, of her sacrifices, held him back.
Why didn't you?
"Tell me," he asked, voice breaking. "The curse," she said softly. "It bound me to the shadows. If I revealed myself too soon, I would lose you, or worse, be lost forever." She took his hand, and he felt the warmth of her skin, the pulse of life he had longed to know. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the distance between them collapsed. Yet the danger was far from over. Lady Selene's forces had regrouped, and she was relentless. Cale realized that to survive they would have to leave the palace and retreat into the forest, the one place Elara truly ruled, where shadows obeyed her and the elements answered her will. The journey into the forest was fraught with tension. Kale struggled to trust fully in her supernatural abilities, while Alara wrestled with the need to protect him without endangering him further. Their bond deepened, but so did their inner conflicts. Kale's pride as a king clashed with his reliance on a being beyond mortal understanding. Alara's love for him battled with the fear that her curse might yet destroy everything she held dear. One night as they camped under the silver light of the moon, Kale finally spoke.
I do not care about the curse, Ilara.
I care about you. You have saved me countless times, and now I know who you are.
I cannot unsee it. I cannot ignore it. I trust you. Tears filled her eyes, and she allowed herself to step closer than she had dared. You trust me, yet I am still bound. I cannot fully be yours, not yet. Then we will find a way. We will face this together. But even as they pledged their hearts, the forest shifted. A shadow darker than night itself moved among the trees. Lady Selene had tracked them, using spies and magic to follow their trail. She would not allow Kale to escape, nor would she tolerate the bond forming between the king and the wolf woman who had become his salvation. A sudden roar shattered the night. The trees shook, and Kale drew his sword, ready to fight. Elara stepped forward, her hands glowing with ethereal light, her wolf form ready to defend him once more. But she hesitated, sensing the presence of magic far older and darker than any she had faced. Lady Selene emerged from the shadows, her eyes blazing with power and ambition. "So," she said, voice smooth and dangerous, "this is the one who has stolen your loyalty, Kale, the wolf who dares to bind herself to your fate." Kale stepped protectively in front of Alara. "She has done nothing but protect me," he said, voice firm. "You will not harm her." Selene smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "We shall see, King. You have grown too fond of her, too reliant, and reliance is a dangerous weakness." Elara's heart pounded. She had revealed herself, trusting Kale with her truth, but now the consequences loomed larger than ever. The enemy before them was not just a mortal rival. She wielded magic, cunning, and a relentless will. To survive, they would need to fight not just with strength, but with courage, trust, and the bond that had only begun to form between them. Kale's gaze met hers. No words were needed. They would face this together, even if the outcome was uncertain. And yet, deep in her heart, Alara knew that the choice she faced might demand more than either of them could give. To save him, she might have to risk the final remnants of her curse, the only link keeping her tethered to life and purpose. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying a promise and a warning. The forest, which had been her sanctuary, now held the echoes of battle and the weight of decisions yet to come. The night was far from over, and the shadows whispered of challenges that would test not just their lives, but the very bond of heart and soul that had begun to form between king and guardian. The forest of Eldrath was alive with whispers, the trees swaying as though they themselves awaited the coming storm. Lightning split the sky above, illuminating the dense canopy in flashes of silver and green. King Kale stood beside Alara, her human form now fully revealed, though faint traces of spectral light still clung to her like a shimmer in the dark. They were no longer merely king and subject, nor guardian and ward. They were partners in fate, bound by trust, courage, and love. Yet the danger that had stalked them from the beginning had not vanished. Lady Selene and her forces had tracked them to the heart of the forest. The rival queen, ambitious and relentless, had come not to negotiate, but to destroy. She wielded dark magic, capable of twisting shadows into deadly forms. Her army was not vast, but each soldier was trained, each spell precise, and each step carried the intent to strike fear into the heart of Eldrath's rightful ruler. Kale's hand rested on the hilt of his sword, but his eyes never left Alara. She was no longer merely the ghost wolf. She was the woman who had saved him countless times, the woman he had come to trust with his life and his heart. Her eyes, glowing faintly with residual magic, met his. "Are you ready?" she asked, voice steady, though her fingers trembled slightly. Kale nodded. "Together," he said. "We face this together." The first wave came like a storm. Shadows stretched unnaturally, taking form as grotesque figures animated by Celine's magic. Elara stepped forward, her spectral energy flaring. She moved with fluid grace, striking with power that was both human and otherworldly. Kale followed, sword swinging, strategy guiding each motion. Together, they were a force that no ordinary army could match. Yet Selene had not come unprepared. She raised her staff, summoning tendrils of shadow that lashed out like snakes. Kale blocked what he could, but the magic pushed him back, threatening to overwhelm him. He felt a pang of fear, not for himself, but for Elara. He could not bear the thought of losing her, not now, after everything. Elara's gaze sharpened. She channeled her remaining ghostly energy, the faint light that had always clung to her form growing stronger. A low hum resonated from her chest, and the shadows around Celine's magic began to waver. She leapt forward, her hands glowing with energy, and struck at the source of the dark magic. The tendrils recoiled, the shadow army faltering. Kale, seeing the opportunity, charged. Every step was precise, every swing of his sword calculated, but it was Elara's magic that broke the balance. Together they advanced on Celine, who had raised her staff in desperation. "You cannot win!" she screamed. "This power is mine." Elara stepped closer, eyes blazing. "It is not yours," she said, voice carrying the weight of every act of loyalty, every moment of silent protection, every heartbeat spent in the shadows for Kale's sake. "It belongs to the kingdom, and it belongs to those who love it and defend it." Celine's magic surged, but the combined strength of Kale's resolve and Elara's spectral power proved too strong. Light met shadow in a clash that sent shockwaves through the forest. Trees groaned and bent, lightning flashed, and the earth trembled. Selene screamed as her magic unraveled, leaving her vulnerable. Kale pressed forward, and with a final, decisive strike he disarmed her. She fell to her knees, defeated, the forest quieting around her. Elara exhaled, her energy dimming as the glow faded from her hands. Kale reached for her, holding her close. "You were amazing," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how I can ever thank you enough." "You already have," she whispered, leaning against him. "You trust me. You believe in me. That is more than I ever hoped for." But even as the danger ended, the final challenge remained, the curse that had bound Elara for so long. Though she had revealed herself and fought alongside Kyle, the ghostly magic still clung to her. To fully reclaim her life, to become entirely human and free, she would need a ritual under the blood moon, the first such alignment in a century. The ritual was both simple and terrifying. It required her to channel the energy of her spectral form into her human body, risking her very existence. Kale stood beside her, holding her hands, his presence steady and reassuring. "We will do this together," he said. "Whatever happens, I will not leave your side." The blood moon rose, casting crimson light over the forest. Shadows lengthened, the air shimmered with ancient magic, and the silence was absolute. Elara closed her eyes, focusing on the energy within her, feeling it swirl like a river of silver and light. Kale's hand was warm against hers, grounding her, anchoring her to the mortal world. The ritual began. Elara's form shimmered between wolf and human, spectral energy spiraling around her. She felt fear, doubt, and the memories of years spent in silence, all the moments of longing, protection, and love. Kale's voice guided her, steady and unwavering. "You are not alone, Elara. I am with you. Always." Energy surged, bright and wild, and for a heartbeat it seemed as if the forest itself held its breath. Then, with a final pulse of light, Elara collapsed into Kale's arms, her body human once more, fully restored. The spectral glow vanished, leaving her alive, whole, and free. Kale held her tightly, feeling the warmth of her body, the pulse of life, and the reality of her presence. "You're here," he whispered. "You're really here." Tears of relief and joy streaked down Elara's face. "I am," she said softly. "And I will stay if you will have me." Kale cupped her face, his thumb brushing against her cheek. I don't want anyone else by my side, he said. You have always been here, even when I couldn't see you. You saved my life, my heart, everything. I will never let you go. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, the shadows retreating, the air softening. Even the trees, ancient and silent witnesses to magic and fate, seemed to bend in acknowledgment of the bond that had been forged through danger, loyalty, and love. Days passed and Eldrath began to heal. The castle, once threatened by internal and external enemies, now stood secure under Kael's leadership, strengthened by the lessons of trust and reliance he had learned in the forest. Alara remained by his side, no longer a guardian from the shadows but a partner, equal in voice, will, and heart. Together they rebuilt what had been damaged. Kael ruled with wisdom tempered by the knowledge of vulnerability. Alara guided with insight and compassion, her experiences as both protector and survivor shaping decisions that honored both the people and the land. Their bond, once hidden and fragile, became the foundation of their reign, and yet, even in peace, they remembered the shadows that had shaped them. The forest, where Alara had walked as the ghost wolf, remained a sacred place. There she would sometimes return, not as a phantom, but as a reminder of the strength and resilience born from silence, patience, and devotion. One night, under the silver light of a full moon, Kael and Alara stood at the edge of the forest. He took her hand, and she leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "Do you miss it?" he asked softly, nodding toward the dark trees. Alara smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I no longer need to live in the shadows to protect you. I can stand in the light with you." Kael pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "And I will stand with you, always. In shadows or in light, nothing can separate us now." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying a faint echo of the past, a whisper of silver eyes, a rustle in the leaves. But it was no longer a shadow of longing. It was a testament, a memory of courage and love that had endured and triumphed. Alara looked up at him, eyes bright with hope and joy. "We survived," she said. "We made it through everything." Kael smiled, drawing her closer. "Yes," he said, "and now nothing can break us." Together they watched the moonlight dance across the forest, a symbol of what had been lost, what had been found, and what would always remain: love, loyalty, and a bond forged in the darkness that had finally found its place. In the light,